Hey, Brandon, what's up, dude?
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, we're back on Carlos Meglia's Canari. Carlos Meglia. Folks, if you want to know more about Carlos Meglia and his background, we covered it a bit briefly as best we could on the last episode, which Canari Volume 1. There will be a link below. Just click down there or somewhere around here. You'll find it. You'll be able to go watch that video, then come back, get Volume 2. But here's Volume 1. Here's Volume 2 of Carlos Meglia's Canari. Now, I'll tell you, Brandon, something fun. The internet would tell you this was his last published work, but there is another.
What?
And if you stick to the end of the video, Brandon, if you stick, you don't quit on me and take off, right? Like you normally do.
Fine.
Right in the middle of the video, go watch TikToks or play Fortnite. What do you do? You play Rainbow Six,
Apex Legends.
Apex Legends, right? You got to stick around to the end of the video, Brandon, right? And we'll find out.
Fine.
You'll see
But
that
if you hear any kind of button clicking, it's not because I'm playing video games.
The only buttons you push right here are mine, Brandon. All right,
Do it.
let's go check out Canari Volume 2. All right. So, I know, forget the light, folks. Best I can do with the lighting scheme we got. Canari Volume 2. I wish I could tell you what this book was about, but it was produced by Argentinians, Mr. Meglia and Mr. Crease, and published in France, so it's in French.
Okay.
I have yet to find a translated copy, so I'm sure someone out there, maybe you have one. Maybe you have one. You sent it to Rob. And I'll finally be able to read this sucker. I've been staring at it since 2007. Brandon, what do you think of the cover?
I think it is beautiful. It's glorious, and it's everything I wish I could make in one image. There's painting, there's digitalness, there's great line work, and it's just the cover.
The way I would sort of describe this book is it's like Disney's Atlantis meets DreamWorks' Road to El Dorado.
Okay.
You know, like visually speaking, you ever see Road to El Dorado?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the least confident I've ever heard. Yeah, sure.
I honestly
type that in.
I know, right? Let me just Google that real quick. No, I've learned a long time ago to not just say yeah to the things you've asked me, because you've called me out on it before on our podcasts and videos, and then I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. So have I seen it? Yes. Did I remember a lot about it? No. I watched certain things, but don't remember.
Carlos Meglia was an animator. He worked at Disney. He worked at Hanna-Barbera. He'd been painting and illustrating since the 70s. You know, he passed away at 50 years old, which too soon. So you'll see a mixture of techniques in this book, from hand-drawn characters, right? Like her, that's line art, pencil, colored in Photoshop, to digital to traditionally painted backgrounds like these trees. Right, and stuff. These are traditionally painted, to digital effects like the moon. These cool like effects back here, blurring out of pencil techniques, like taking additional like splatters and blurring them and blowing them up just to create energy. And like, I don't know, he finds a way. One of the biggest effects animators in 2D animation was Michael Gagne. Michael Gagne, brilliant effects animator. You've seen like Iron Giant, you know, when like the explosions happen, that's him. Okay. And he's done like the Clone Wars cartoon, you name the movie, Michael Gagne invented the effects. I met him at Comic-Con in 2001, having already known his name from Iron Giant. I saw the effects in Iron Giant. I was like, who the fuck did that? And I found him at Comic-Con. And I was like, you're Michael Gagne. He's like, it's Gagne. And I'm like, all right, Gagne. And but that's what I see Meglia sort of emulating here, like trying to get that Gagne, but in a drawing, not animated. You know what I mean? Like just one freaking drawing. So the thing that Meglia does that I really appreciate is sometimes, you know, Brandon, sometimes people ask me, Rob, do you ever thought about doing animation? I'm like, yeah, I did that in college. I hate it. Like, I like to animate in one drawing, Brandon. Make it move in one drawing. It saves you. You could just 23 other drawings you don't have to do. And Meglia was a master at animating in one drawing. You know, this moves, right? You just see it moving. Yeah. You just see it. I mean, these birds alone, dude. Like, I just, you could still frame any one of these cartoons you see now, like think about your favorite Warner Brothers DC animated OAVs. If you still frame them, they don't move as much as Miglia's art.
No, they're very stiff.
So that's crazy, right? Let's open up the book. Brilliantly illustrated inside cover on canvas with a hand illustrated character. We covered this in the last issue. It's the same as the previously inside cover. So we've already covered that. Really great. Go watch the video, but looks dope, right, Brandon?
Oh yeah, it's fucking beautiful. I love just everything that he mixes in it, but yeah.
So and then he sort of has another version of that there. And then we get into the main book here. So there's frame one of Canari Volume 2. Yeah, man, this just looks like like the coolest animated film never made. Sometimes, Brandon, like Studio Ghibli in different studios, sometimes they do these like Mononoke or Totoro books where they take frames from the film and arrange them like comic books. Have you seen those?
No.
Yeah, they'll actually take snippets of the film and put them in a comic book format.
Oh wow!
And this still looks better than when they do that. It never works because the aspect ratios are different here, right? Like it's just different. You know, you get wides, you get thins, but it's always like on those books, it's always frame by frame by frame by frame. It doesn't really have the same effect. But this is like traditionally painted stuff here. These are hand drawn characters with the flat cell color, and this water. I was telling Brandon on the last episode that this looks like something called Kai's Power Tools to me, or some plugin suite. Back in the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s, the big thing to have in Photoshop were plugins.
Okay.
And so now I would say people ask, when they see your art, Brandon, and you colored it, what do people ask you for?
What textures or
Brushes.
Overlays? Brushes.
Oh, brushes, right, Brandon. Good. You're paying attention. So, yeah, people always say, what brushes did you use? Well, back in the early 2000s, late 90s, it was what plugins did you use? And this water effect, kind of hard to see here, even with the zoom in, but it has like a shimmer and this little like ripple effect that you could get out of something like Kai's Power Tools. I'm making Kai's Power Tools sound like it was something more complex or fantastical than it was. It would create a lot of weird shit. So to get any use out of those textures required someone of like great skill or talent, you know? Because it would like do like ripples or textures or distortions or effects, but what do you do with it? You know?
Yeah.
This guy found stuff to do with it. Like, yeah. So goes to show you, the tool's only as good as the artist, right? Look at this frame, dude. Just look at that face. Look at these little dudes.
Oh yeah, everything has its own expression and its own vibe going on.
This looks better than look, I'm not knocking modern animation. I'm not knocking it. But like when I look at movies like Strange World, I'm like, I've seen this a million times. I've never seen anything that looks like this at this level of detail, right? Like Atlantis has like a smaller version, but it doesn't have this level of complexity in the character texturing. There has to be a way you could do this now, like given Spider-Verse and the styling of these characters to pull something like this off. But yeah, man, like I would love an Aquaman. Imagine like an Aquaman movie that looked like this.
Oh yeah, I would eat that up.
Right? Like he's like, hey, what's up? Look, if there's this cheeky little bastard, that's what I love about like Cats from Other Countries. Like they're cool, man. Hide a little cheesecake in my book.
Yeah,
I like
it. It's not. It's cute and it's not over sexualized.
No. It's cheesecake. It's tasteful. Yeah. So page 2, like I just want to point this out. Like I was telling Brandon, like I really wish Meglia worked at Hanna-Barbera in like the 80s. Like, he should have been able to redesign Scooby-Doo, right? Like look at this. It's like Shaggy and his brother.
Yeah.
Right? Like, look at those. Look at those little hippies. I mean, he was like in his 20s in the 70s, so he knows hippies, like,
oh yeah.
He knows them. Look at this panel, man, with the water and like just the use of like mixed media. and like
Yeah.
the little like the way he'll like glow this out to give that illusion of light. Plus, he took the final frame here, flipped them and blurred them out to create the reflection in the water. You know, which I'm not saying you don't see that in mainstream comics, but the reason you don't see it, well, the reason you don't see it is because it's a fucking pain in the ass to do, and colorists, you know, they get paid by volume, not so much, you know,
Yeah.
per page. It's like per stack of pages. So the only way you get an effect like that is if you were the guy who drew and painted it too, and you wanted to see it through. You know,
Yeah.
it's kind of the only way that works. But this temple is painted acrylic. So he painted this last issue, and then he's recropping it and blowing it up on different frames. You know, but look, he's got a frame within a frame. That's something that you'll notice about Meglia. If you ever see this frame, right, boxing inside a frame, like he was one of the first to do it. You know?
And
I don't know if
it brings your focus to it. It's just instead of just you having to figure out where that, like the little her head that's popped out within a bubble, which is super cool. You know, she's looking at what's inside that square. Like he does a good job of drawing your attention exactly to where he wants it to go.
well,
I
what
know
are
it's
the
a very
reasons?
crude explanation, but
Well, so two things are happening there, Brandon. Let me zoom out a little bit, but like one, and this is just my guess, right, as to why how you arrive at this sort of. Let me bring this forward a little bit so I can move back, motherfucker. All right, so this is this right here reused. Now the reason why though is in Europe, typically the backgrounds are the biggest deal in European comics. The locations, the characters, not so much.
okay.
Here in America, the characters are the focus.
Yeah.
And in Japan, it's the volume of story.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it doesn't need to be drawn particularly well. When I say well, I'm not saying the Japanese manga is drawn poorly, but it's not done like this, right? It's not fully colored with rendered and lighting. It's black and white. Sometimes it's loose, sometimes it's detailed, but you know, it's volume. It's where they have to have assistants and stuff like that. But in Europe, they'll do like this is 50 pages. He probably spent a year on this. 50 pages is 2.5 issues in America, right?
Yeah.
So it's less than 3 issues. And then he did everything, but the backgrounds are a big deal. So that's so he probably needed these backgrounds here, and he needed this background here, but that frame makes sure that you look at that guy, right?
Right.
And make sure you look at him and you see him. So, you know, the background is there, but you're also doing it versus having to have him blown up into a frame. There wouldn't be space for it, you know? So I'm just saying that's probably how that happens.
Right.
Like this is a hand painted frame right there. This was something else I was telling Brandon. I thought it was cool. It reads okay here, but it reads even better on the physical book, especially here. But these cobwebs, this is like a Dom Bluth like technique. If you see Secret of Nim and stuff, like so, he drew these with pencil, fills in with white, and then turns the opacity down to like 15-20%, right?
Yeah.
And it just gives it that cool, transparent cobweb look. You don't see that.
No.
I don't know why. It looks brilliant, but you'd have to really coordinate with your colorist, you know?
Oh yeah, to let them know, because it would probably be one solid. You're not trapping anything in, but that looks so it looks like it's on them. I mean, I don't know.
And it looks even better. Well, because he drew it. They are physically on the panel. I mean, they're there, but the subtlety of it here on the book on the printed page is really, really quite good. He could have taken it one further and like took the final. So the lettering, I follow a lot of letterists like on Twitter and social medias, and American letterists love to tell other people how to letter. You know, like apparently they wrote some Bible on it like 20 years ago, and no one's allowed to do anything other than what they say. Like it's supposed to. No offense to letter, you guys do brilliant work. I mean, people can't read it without lettering, but there's way too many rules, man. And I feel like it's caused comics to be very stagnant. Yes. You know, there's like, I used to call them when I worked at Game Fan, and I was laying out magazines, I'd get these critics who'd say, "Why did you do this?" And I would go, "I didn't know the lords of typography wrote down on stone that you couldn't do certain shit. Like, I just thought if it looked cool, good enough."
Yeah.
And so one of the things I'll point out is like these word balloons aren't all circular, right?
No.
They aren't ovals, they are circles. Right? And look at the type, goes right to the edge. Who cares? Look, it even has a hyphenation, Brandon. They hyphenated, you know, because it wouldn't fit otherwise.
And then if you notice on the right where your hand was between the guy and the girl, the talk bubble's behind him, almost like he's walking away. So therefore, how he's talking is behind, you know, it's in front of him. It's just, it cuts, him cutting into it is.
And look at the tails.
Cool.
The tails are just little lines, dude.
Yeah, little mix, little
just a drawn little. Yeah, but you're right. So she's in front of the word balloon and it's behind him, so it recedes. They would you would never allow that. That would never be allowed. No. You know. And so why am I bringing it up? I'm bringing it up for you indie artists out there producing your own work. Like, I'm not saying disregard what they say, but I will say this: when it comes to best use practices, right? That's what they like to call it. It means standards and procedures, right? Standard operating procedure, best use practices. The problem with creating something that looks, quote unquote, like an official thing, that looks like a comic, that looks like a movie. What that means is you no longer have your own identity, and you've now tried to create something that mirrors the status quo. And so as an independent artist, if you do that, no one can see you. You can't see your voice. Yeah. So you have to break rules. Like learn to do it their way. Like, you know, if you're going to letter your own book, re-letter a book that you like, right? That you're a fan of, but just like do it on your own. You know what I mean? Like do your own version of it to learn the sizing, the fonts, and get a feel for how they do it. And then go do your own version of it, you know? Yeah. Because especially with today's audiences, man, like forget the older people, the younger people. Younger people read manga, and none of that shit's lettered professionally. It's lettered for getting the job done. Yeah. And I just think like if you somewhere between getting the job done and being creative is the better way for, especially for independent artists. You know, let the mainstream publishers create mediocrity, right? We don't need to jump in on that bandwagon. I'm gonna get a lot of hate mail for that, but I just don't like. I've done so much typography on T-shirts and in magazines and printed stuff that anytime a creator, I got compliments on my lettering from Eric Larson, right? Oh, wow. Who you know, Brandon. That dude has got the smash hammer on people. Like,
he will flat out tell you if you draw like. I've seen so many times on Twitter, someone will post a Savage Dragon, and he'll just tell them like, "Hey, the fin sucks. I don't like it," and it just straight to them and like just crush them. And I'm like, "Damn,
ruthless." He just gets that sword and just seppukus you. Yeah, you know. Look how cool this is, Brandon. Look at this. Let's go zoom in. Hey, Brandon.
Yeah.
You enjoying the video so far?
Always.
Well, did you know I have a YouTube channel with like 1,000 other videos?
1,000?
Like, sadly so, I think. I just wanted to remind everyone out there watching the show. Just if you check out the rest of the Sketchcraft channel, you can see that I got art. I got art tips. We got speed vids with audio commentary. I walk through my art. If you do color pencil, if you do watercolor, you do pen and ink, you do digital. I got it all. I got art tips, right? I got like perspective, digital inking tips. I also have 1,000 real-time live streams. So if you ever see me working on something and you're like, hey, how did I let's go check this out, Brandon. Let's go see me. Yeah. Here's me recently doing the Apocalypse commission, right? Doing a little marker rendering here.
All right.
It's a little inking going on there. You can see me inking, right? I think you were there that night.
I was there. Yeah, I was chatting with you.
Yeah. So you can always come back and go, how did you, I want to do that. How did he do it? And you can see right in real time, you know, if you can dig in there. Now, Brandon, we don't expect everyone to watch these videos all the way through for hours and hours, but it is a free resource. It's sitting there waiting to be discovered. Right, Brandon?
If it's free, it's for me. That's what I say.
Right. Also, Brandon and I, for years, we did a podcast. I want to say like 4 or 5 years. All those are in there too. If you ever want to hear Brandon and I just wax poetic about whatever. And then I also did a podcast from 2010 to 2014 with tons of like career help things. So if you're like, Rob, I need some career guidance and help and I don't know, all that other bullshit, go check that out there, because yes. I don't really like helping people anymore. Right, Brandon?
Not at all.
Not at all. Is there anything that you appreciate on the old,
I appreciate that. I appreciate that there's 1,000 of it and it's free, that I don't have to pay for it. I don't have to do anything crazy, that it's all here. And if I want to be like, hey man, how do I use a Copic marker? Bam. How do I use some watercolor? No. Bam.
I'm not against giving me money, so right here, right at the top, you can click that little link, go to ko-fi.com/sketchcraft, give me some money, I'll go buy a coffee. Ooh. Or if you go to shopsketchcraft.com, you can buy a print when I have them up. Right now, the store is closed for the winter, but in spring, we'll open back up and we'll have prints in there. You can get all that stuff, right? But other than that, go check out the YouTube channel. All right, Brandon, let's get back to the show.
Let's go.
This is dope. It's just solid cartoony, man. Solid. It's not complex art. It's just cool. It's cool. I don't know what cool means to the young people today. I hear a lot of complaining from young people when it comes to art for whatever reason. I don't know why. They got more choices now than ever.
I know I talked about, sorry to cut you off, but I'm just seeing this. I know I talked about it in the last book, but even looking at like his hands, the way he draws hands here, I see the influence that you've gotten from it, to where the knuckles, the exaggeration of the fingers, just the coolness of it. Like I see it a lot.
Well, these are Milt Kahl hands. Like this right here.
Is that
Milt Kahl was one of the 9 old men at Disney Animation.
Okay.
And you would recognize his work. Like you ever see Sword in the Stone?
Uh-huh.
He animated the Merlin.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Right. And if you look at Milt Kahl, look at the Merlin hands.
Yes.
Right there, my friend.
Yeah.
Right there. And so if you ever look up Disney hand model sheets, like Milt Kahl model sheets, Milt Kahl made a bunch of model sheets on hands. Wow. And so you can see all those, and that's right out the Milt Kahl playbook. I saw an interview or read an interview once. I can't remember. Saw or read it. I can't remember.
You visually knew it existed. Go ahead.
Yeah. But I watched it or read it, whatever. But he was describing his process, and he was like, you just draw well. He's one of those guys. Milt Kahl was just one of those dudes who just knew what the fuck he was doing, and just decided to show people rather than tell people how to do stuff. It's one of those guys.
He's like, hey, don't suck.
My favorite of the Disney animators, Milt Kahl, Freddie Moore, and Mark Davis. Those would be my. And then Ollie and Johnson and everyone else after that, but Frank Ollie and Frank Thomas, Ollie Johnson. Sorry. So this panel I love, dude. Like we're talking about those reflections, right? Where he took the final art, he distorted it. Right? You can do a ripple effect in Photoshop or something, and then tweaked it into perspective. If it was Kai's Power Tools, he may have actually been able to use a plugin that would allow you to rotate and flip it in the plugin.
Well, that's cool.
So some of them had these like weird sliders you can move things around, But if you didn't, the way you could do this now is you could just take the final image, do a copy of it, right? Like copy screen or whatever. Control-Shift-C, Control-Shift-V will copy whatever you see. And then you could do a ripple effect and then transform it. But see, the trick is masking it out. That's the trick, because that mask is really a pain. So I'm led to think that he didn't like have a mask and then crop it out and do it. I think the plugin probably allowed him to. But the way you could do it now is if you rippled it, selected your flats, if the lines were also part of the flats, right? So you get the whole image, the character, you could then copy and paste that ripple out and then flip them into perspective. And that's how you would be able to do that trick.
That's exactly what I was thinking. That's it. I was like, yeah.
I'm a little bit of an engineer when it comes to Photoshop, right?
Yeah, you just kind of reversed it or re-engineered it, went backwards.
Yeah, either way. There's a couple. The thing about Photoshop is there's always multiple ways to do stuff, right?
Yeah.
All these hands, these are Milt Kahl hands. He's so good, dude. Meglia, like everyone has their influences, And I imagine he grew up with like Sword in the Stone, you know,
Mm-hmm.
Robin Hood and shit like that. Yeah, man. I was telling Brandon, you know, Meglia, he did a book at Wild. He did a little work for Wildstorm. Jim Lee was smart enough to hire this dude uh, for a bit. So he did a Crimson One. If you're familiar with Wildstorm, they had these cliffhanger books, right? It was like
Mm-hmm.
Image 2.0, where you had Danger Girl, Battle Chasers, and Crimson, right? Crimson was Humberto Ramos. Now Humberto Ramos is probably who put Meglia on the map for Jim Lee, right?
Right.
Because Ramos was definitely influenced by Carlos Meglia.
Oh yeah.
Same with Francesco Herrera, Carlos Barberi, Joe
Right.
Mad, you know, those guys. So uh, the thing is, though, Meglia did this Crimson book, and the Crimson was written by Brian Augustine, friend of the shit, friend of Brandon's, coincidentally speaking, right?
All right.
Right, your friend.
R.I.P. Yep.
Yeah, I met him once. Got to hang out. Passed away, unfortunately. Brian wrote that Crimson. He wrote all the Crimson stuff. He didn't write stuff for Meglia that was like these hot chicks with booties and shit. Like, I don't know, man. Like, they didn't give him the right shots.
Uh-huh.
And I gotta tell you, like, especially when you're drawing like an image book, you need certain shots to like sell the book. You know, pinup pages in a way, or pinup frames. You know, you need to be able to put the hot chicks and the cool looking dudes, and it just didn't have enough of those, if any. Same with like he did an issue of Wildcats, and it barely had Warblade in there. It didn't have the whole Wildcats or any of it. Like, it was, I just don't understand why they didn't. Had they given him something that was just like a Crimson one shot with the vampire hunting chick and Crimson versus like just a horde of vampires, right? Just a fight, like a 24-page fight book with cool fucking fights and no story. You know what I mean? Just let him draw and show what he can do. And then do a Battle Chasers fucking one shot where it's just the group fighting a bunch of shit. And then a Danger Girl one where they're escaping while stealing, you know, like the Indiana Jones bit where they, you know, he steals the golden stuff with the, you know, if he had just done like a 24-page action sequence for each three of those books, put them all out, Meglia's one shots, you know, that would have put him on the map.
Oh yeah. But I mean, you've had a lot of professional work and me very, 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 very little. I think we've all been put on something that where people have seen our work and they put us on something ridiculously dumb and we're just like, why did you choose me for this? You see what I do. Why put me on this? I mean, you've had that in your professional career, right?
I was put on Overwatch.
I didn't want to say
Overwatch
that because I
2.
didn't know what I was
Yeah, I was
supposed to
put
say.
on Overwatch 2. And I got to tell you, I'm like, look, it's not that I can't draw Overwatch. It's I don't think you want me to draw Overwatch.
Right.
Like, I just don't think you want me to do what I would do. And I was right. I would draw stuff and they were just like, no, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, why am I here? I don't understand this. I think with Meglia it was a little different. Like they were writing complex stories and I'm like, just show his art.
Yeah.
You know, get to the complex stories after you make the name. You know, these books don't need complex stories. You need to get his art in front of people. And at the time, man, then that industry was like going the way of the ultimates, you know?
Yeah.
And so like to put a master cartoonist in front of people looking for like Alan Davis's Captain America, I don't know, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't fit the same.
Brian Hitch.
So some of the things we see here, I love this crazy temple thing, man. This is just a combination of technique. So like this is drawn color digitally. This background is like paint daubs filters over previous paintings or like effects, you know, blurred out and motion blurred. And then this bubble thing you see here and here, I'm pretty certain that's something like Kai's Power Tools or one of these plugins that would create something like that, you know? Like it would probably just make weird bubble textures. I don't know what the fuck for. There'd always be these books, man. There'd be like 10,000 tricks you can do with Photoshop, you know? And you're always looking at them like, what would you put this on? I have no clue, you know? And he had to have just found like cool effects like this that he could use, you know?
Right.
This water out semi-transparent, dude. It just looks like it's animated moving water. You don't get this in video games these days, man.
No,
this level of transparency with like And there's no reason you could, you could,
Yeah.
but you don't. Like, look at this, same frame, right? Like, so he's changed these two. She's the same, and then he put the word balloons in between. Man, he tried to convince an editor to let you do that today. Only in Independence. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think too, like a lot of artists don't. You sometimes you just forget some of the things that you learn or can do. It's like I just did a watercolor piece for a Comic-Con, like one day event where I mixed greens and blues because of some of the water I seen in that other book we saw of his, where he mixed blues and greens to make the water look more mossy. And I would have never thought of that. I would just think, oh, water, I'm going to do blue. I wouldn't think, oh, mix a little brown, mix a little green, and just, little things that you probably just forget to do. Not you, but us other artists.
This is what I'm saying. This is not in the Crimson Book.
No.
This should be in the Crimson Book.
Right.
These kind of cool hot chicks. Like, this
Or
should
even
be. He
Battle
should have done a
Chasers.
Red Monica. Yeah, Red Monica.
Yeah.
He should have been given a Red Monica book. Like, look at this. Like, I don't know, man. Like, he could draw beautiful women and they could still be tasteful. He wasn't like lewdly doing shit. And even if he
Right.
did, who cares? Like, I just, there's a weird double standard we have now where it's like in a mainstream comic book, if you draw a Supergirl in a sexy way, half your audience gets all offended. Meanwhile, that audience will go on their Twitter and draw like straight up pornographic shit. And I'm like, but what? I don't understand the conflict. I don't get it. This is cool. Let's look at this right here. I was telling Brandon this couple of things here. So we'll start with the obvious and then the not so obvious. So the obvious is this star pattern, right? You see these stars, right?
Yeah.
So how this was done was he created like a flat texture, right, with the stars, or maybe even like this, like separate files, right? And then that's separate. And then on this, he rendered like with airbrush, like this drapery, right?
Right.
And saved a black and white version of just that airbrushing. And then or he trapped it, right? He trapped it, copied it, and then with that separate texture, you can take that in Photoshop and go to displace. It's an old filter that's still in there. Go displace, and then you select. You have to go select a file, and that file needs to be that shading that you had done, and it will warp that image to your black and white shading.
Oh wow!
So that's how that was done. That was a big technique that was shared on the internet around 99, 2000. There was a guy named Francis Tsai, Tsai. He's passed away, unfortunately. He had one of the first sites that would cover like Photoshop techniques and tutorials. Like I think it was called Polymecha, I believe. And he covered this displace filter a lot. Like, and I'm pretty certain that's probably where Carlos learned it too. Francis Tsai, he had some stroke or he had some disease where he couldn't draw anymore with his hands. And so his wife and them created a camera that he could draw with his eyes.
Oh, wow.
So like he had these posters, these like flat, he did like these flat images that were really cool, like material. I don't know. They were really cool, like illustrated. He'd create like temples and swords and shit like that with it. He was trying to raise money for his healthcare at the time because he was trapped in this horrific country of America where they just let you die. You don't get any kind of healthcare here. So that was before GoFundMe. But
don't worry, everyone. We will eventually showcase people that are alive. I imagine it won't always be so morbid.
Oh, I'll be gone by the time some of these people watch this. But what happened to Rob? He died too. Oh, that makes sense.
This is not the R.I.P. podcast.
It is. It's the R.I.P. cast. Like Rip Comics.
Ugh.
But that's how he did like the stars, over here. And I was always like, oh man, this guy just did like Wonder Woman where she had this cool fucking cape and she was just killing fucking Greek, like Gods of War, like a God of War killing gods comic, that looked like this. I don't know, man. Dude, the Americans are so weird, dude. They look at this and then they go, why are the faces angular? Why is this? No one would be shaped like this. And then those same people go and watch like the Velma cartoon and get mad at the designs. You know,
Right.
like I don't know. I'm not saying I love the Velma cartoon. I'm just saying Americans should shut the fuck up about cartooning. Like we're generally not good at it
Yeah.
compared to the rest of the world. You know, people complain about bean mouth, quote unquote bean mouth. Well, we invented that. So blame Americans.
Damn us.
I know. You ever see a drop shadow in a word balloon before? Nope.
No.
As I told you, it doesn't matter, dude. Like the rules that we have don't apply everywhere else. This looks dope. Look, he added the water, little caustic reflections, little caustics. He just painted those in like on a Dodge layer. It's not hard thing to do, but you don't see. Show me one Aquaman comic where they paint in the caustics reflecting on the people.
Oh no, can't find it.
I know. I gotta like try to avoid the light as much as possible, but it's just hard. Some of this paper is like it's glossy, so it reflects light no matter how you light the room. You know, you're just like trying to fight. Leaving it here. Look, you left an open panel. Always leave an open panel. Always leave it open. Why? Because it's just cool.
Yeah.
Just breaks up some negative space.
Even like that top on the right page, that top bubble with the orange outline, the top left of the right page with the little girl. Yeah, I think that's cool with the little orange on it to really just pop it out even more to bring your attention to
We
it.
did a bevel. He did like a little bevel emboss too to pop it forward a bit. What I love here, let's see if I can zoom in. Okay, so here's something cool. So this is clouds, right? A photo like thing where he cropped in, you know? And then he's also motion blurred the sound effects. And you know, like they're motion blurred?
Yeah.
You know, this is, but then this isn't. So some of them are like, it's one that he stretched. It's the same thing. He stretched them. And then they're a little blurred at the top, but then not. And then they're in focus and out of focus. Like just to create that sense of a crack boom without just one style of font or effect. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
they're not vectors. What I'm saying, like he made them physical fucking pixels and then did effects on them to give them that sense of lightning coming through the gate, the sound. You know, like this ethereal, magical stuff. I love it, man. I don't know, dude. Like, it kind of reminds me of like, remember in the '80s. Like in Poltergeist and Ghostbusters when they used to fill like a tank of oil to create that effect of clouds rolling coming at you. Yeah, it reminds me of like that kind of old school effect. Look at this. Look at this spread, dude.
I have no idea what's going on, but it looks epic as hell.
Yeah, I know, right? Like,
it looks like how Aquaman should look.
I know. The problem, though, again, is you just end up the time it takes to do it, the amount of work you get out of it, and then the audience that fights anything that isn't the status quo.
Yeah,
it's an uphill battle, man. Like his Superman Infinite City, and we'll cover that at a later date. His Superman Infinite City, to me, is the best looking Superman comic ever made. No one's read it. Nobody. It's just, yeah. I just feel we're so lucky to have this stuff, you know. Like he made it, and then here we are looking at it. So there are nights where I'm like, why bother, Rob? And I'm like, I gotta. I mean, I'm 5 years away from the age he was when he passed, and I still can't do this. Like I'd have to take a lot. I think I could get close, but
I think you could do it. I have faith in you.
Yeah, everyone thinks. Yeah, everyone's great when you sign other people up for work, Brandon.
Yeah. I mean, it's not me. I mean,
yeah.
You totally got this. You totally.
It's one thing to recreate; it's another thing to create it on your own. Remember that.
Yeah. Look how
but it does
colors
I know. Well, that's what I was telling you about. Like when it comes to his colors, he was a professional painter, and so like he was painting full acrylic pieces by the 70s, right? So let's say
Yeah.
he was probably doing that 10 years before then. So since the 60s, you know?
Yeah.
And when you paint traditionally like that, you just understand value a lot, because especially with opaque painting, value is everything. You can't just put giant neon colors next to one another and get anywhere with physical media, you know?
Right.
It's in the grays where you make your you know your money color wise. So when you do put a contrast color to pop out, it stands. And I just think like that knowledge of color theory extended to his digital work, you know, brilliantly.
Yeah.
Man, I mean, imagine if this guy had done a Hellboy book like this.
Oh, that'd be fucking epic.
This panel always gets me. It's like there's enough detail in here for 2 pages, you know.
Oh yeah.
So this background is traditionally painted. These characters were drawn way bigger than this. They weren't drawn that small. They were probably drawn full page, 8.5 by 11, scaled down, you know. And then you get the transparency effect on these drapes. And look, no shading on those. You don't need it. That transparency solves all of it. You just he trapped the lines, color hold the lines, so they're gray lines, and then filled it with white, turned the transparency down, and boom. Works.
Yeah.
I just wish we follow more animation. I wish we would follow more old school animation techniques when coloring comics versus what they do now with these crazy hyper realistic renderings, or the old school 50s flat stuff, you know, like I don't know. Anything stand out to you here, Brandon?
Just that I see shit like this and I'm like, man, I can draw. Like, I know I'll. How do I put this? I'm not the best artist. I'm trying. I constantly am trying. But I was just talking to another artist friend today that I need to work on how to set a scene. And this guy, just every page, it's like, you know what's going on. He sets the scene. It just.
You should be studying Mark Davis. So if you want to learn how to like set a scene, what you're really talking about is telling a story in one image.
Yes.
And Mark Davis transferred from Disney Animation to WED, which was Walt. It was the company that Walt created to build the Disneyland parks. And he ended up, long story short, he gets to Pirates of the Caribbean. All the little gags, all the little scenes you see in Pirates of the Caribbean, Mark Davis did. Like the dog trying to get the keys from the guy.
Yeah.
That's one illustration. You know what I mean? But he would design that 3-dimensionally, so the set pieces all had these little mini stories within a giant story.
Okay.
And so he sort of pioneered that. There's a 2 hardcover book series, which we should cover sometime if we want to go through it. We should go through that Mark Davis book, and I could show you some of the stuff.
I know I'll never be able to do panels. I'll never be able to draw a comic book. I mean, maybe one day I'll be able to get like a IDW cover shot or something. Maybe I'll get to do a cover, right? But I
can't even get an ID cover shot.
Right. Well, you know what I mean.
I'm online friends with all them dudes like Billy Martin and John. So I can't get no covers, man. Okay. I even knew the editor in chief of IDW, and I couldn't get a cover fucking shot.
Well, my thing is, I'll digress here, is that I still need to set a scene. If I'm still doing a cover, I still have to paint a scene. You know, I still have to. It needs to have a scene going on. I can't just have characters floating in with solid backgrounds. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I know I'll never be able to do something like this, but if I ever to get a shot to do a cover or a t-shirt or some shit, I still need to set up a scene. So seeing this is just like, man, this guy just, yeah, he does it. He's got it. He's got the goods.
Yeah, I would have loved to have met the guy. I never got to meet him. All the people I've met, I've met most of my heroes, dude. Him and James Cameron are the 2 I think I've never met. I don't think I've met James Cameron. I would have known, but you know what I mean. Like,
yeah, right.
I've met I met pretty much everyone I've ever wanted to meet, except those two. I can't meet Carlos; he's passed away. So maybe one day I'll run into James Cameron, like at a soup plantation or something. Can't. No, those out of business. Those died too.
Some kind of
So
underwater thing.
This is based off a photo. Now he may have. I think this is painted. It's painted from a photo. I think this is an acrylic painting. As I've seen some of this stuff localized on his own, you know, so it matches that work. But a way you could get around doing something like this, it wouldn't be as quite as good, but it would be close. Is there are apps like Corel Painter where they have this thing called a clone brush. So you'd select a photo. By the way, always use your own photos or, you know, legally sourced stock photography. But you could take a clone and then you could take painter brushes and paint, and it will copy the photo, but it will use the brush's strokes or techniques, you know, when you do it.
Mm-hmm.
So you could get something similar based off photos if you needed to.
Well, that's pretty cool.
And then here, like, he's thrown like a dodge layer to create that light, you know? So this office, it's weird. Like, I want to say it's acrylic. Is this acrylic painted? Yeah, it's acrylic painted. And then to throw off the detail, he's probably added the paint daubs to throw out some of the details, so it falls almost like depth of field, you know? It's like Danny Trejo, right?
It does look a lot like him.
That's straight up. That's fucking Danny Trejo, bro. Yeah. Like, I mean, I met Danny Trejo once at this T-shirt company I worked at. He came in. They got the Danny Trejo license. He was super cool.
This girl I played volleyball with, he's her second cousin or something. Like, and I was like, bullshit. Cool. And then she showed me pictures of like at the family barbecue and shit with him. And I'm like, oh shit. She's like, yeah. Why would I make that up? I'm like, I don't know. Seemed like a cool story to make up. She's like, no, he's my second cousin or something.
Trejo.
Yeah, and I was like, oh shit. Like, you really are family members with him.
Okay, let me zoom out on this one.
We've all gathered here to this painting we've seen before.
Yeah, he did this. This is a one painting he's used over and over again. But you know, in animation, they reuse the same. They don't.
Oh yeah,
it isn't a new shot every time. You know what I mean?
I would not even attempt to repaint that. Like, why? You can use it in so many different ways. Twist it, turn it, change the lighting on it. You know, overlays.
Yeah, cool Jungle Book style piece. Man, imagine if this guy had done like a Wakandan book.
Oh yeah.
This was something I was telling Brandon I love, where he'll like the eye line for the water's here, but he's created it so like you see under the water. Yeah. But under the water, he didn't just make it a flat color. He airbrushed and put bubbles and drew all that, and then blurred and motion blurred them out, so it would create, you know, like the lack of focus,
the light and the heat coming up and everything. Like, oh, that's so cool. That's like such a movie animation technique right there.
It's just gore. I mean, they're riding shamus and shit in the jungle. Fuck, dude. Yeah. I'm telling you, man. Just this is the stuff that just I don't mind staying up till the wee hours of the night, staring at Carlos Meglia's art. You know, like you know, people go, Rob, you smoke weed, and I'm like, I don't do any drugs, man. I just look at Carlos Meglia's art fucking 2 in the morning. I get a rush. You know?
Yeah, pump this into my veins.
Imagine this was a Jedi book and shit, dude. He did some Star Wars stuff, but never with the painted backgrounds. They had different colors. It's a real shame. It's a real shame. We'll go over his Star Wars work at some point, but this painted stuff he only did for the French market. He never did in America.
Because Americans weren't ready for it.
Imagine if he also done a Fathom one-shot, dude.
Oh, yeah. You could plug in so many different things with this look.
You know, if I had unlimited money at the time, I would have just been like, all right, dude, I'm going to be your agent. Here's how we're going to do this. You know, blah, 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 blah. Like, you know, who cares if it only sells only sells 50,000 copies? Like, at the time in the 90s, that was considered a colossal failure. They'd kill for 50,000 copies now.
Yeah.
Look, I'm not the biggest fan of drop shadowing big fonts like this, but I will say this too. I'm also not a fan of putting giant fonts like this over the art. I don't think it's necessary. So this is one thing that they still do here in the States. Drop shadows they don't do, but they put these giant fonts over stuff
Yeah.
that I'm like, I don't like it, you know? So I'm not a fan of that or this. I don't think it needs it. It doesn't add anything.
No.
So those two, and of everything I've seen, this page is probably the least. This is the one where I'm like, all right, letter, we need to talk.
Yeah.
This page,
Can you
I'll say
zoom
if
out
I
a
had to
little?
critique, hold on, let me zoom out.
Yeah. There we go.
If I had to guess on this page, something tells me the writer was like, we're missing stuff. So they threw like
Threw it all in.
into one, yeah. Yeah, that's what it feels like.
It looks a little, I don't want to say rush, but like hit the inking on that main guy right there.
There's no inking, it's pencils.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah, those are pencils. He just threshold them or something like that, you know?
Gotcha.
Yeah. None of these characters are inked. They're just penciled. But I like the imperfect line. Like that's what I think is missing from a lot of like super clean stuff.
Uh-huh.
So it's just when the characters are smaller, you don't notice it as much, you know? And
Gotcha.
it doesn't have the fidelity of like an extra textured brush you use in Photoshop because it's blown up, but he also smoothed it out. So it's just there's a different way to take that same technique and make it so it's a little bit more textured, and I think you would like it. It's the lack of texture, I think.
Probably.
Yeah. It's reused there. So like what this right here, dude. Like so like this is a drawing, you know, that's based off a photo, and he did quick digital painting, and then these bricks are photos that he did the paint daubs filter over.
Uh-huh.
And because it's looser than it's not the acrylic stuff, I just think these were like insert pages, you know,
Gotcha.
that were added after the fact. And it's a lot of little different inserts, and they didn't have pages to add them to, so they just put them all over like a scatter shot.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I've drawn a few scripts, so like I know the backwards engineering. You know, I can kind of,
Right.
if I had to guess, maybe I'm not. Maybe it was always intended that way, but I doubt that.
I'm sure you're right. I like how on the bottom there, bottom left page, the cat's heads popped out of both, between both boxes. Like,
Yeah.
it's just a neat little thing that it just adds to it. I like that. I like stuff like
It's
that.
kind of a comic strip thing too. It's something you might have seen like in Calvin and Hobbes, or you know, like it's, yeah. I'm all for it, dude. I just, for some reason, a lot of comics these days, people just think like they need to look like movie frames. You know, they can't just utilize the comic page to get the point across. I mean, it's funny because here I am the final rendering of this is better than most movies, but I just think it's because he's using the medium of comics to its best effect, you know. Like it's laid out when it like a comic where it needs to be, but it's rendered like a movie to give it that special buy me now, right? Look at this fucking water, dude. It's as good as like Prince of Egypt.
Oh yeah.
This clouds is like the same clouds that are paint daubed and stuff.
Yeah.
He probably just like quickly photo paint, like he painted it, you know what I mean, like in Photoshop, you know,
Right.
really quickly. But because they're softer, they just fall back, you know. But that water probably is a combination of an acrylic painting with blurs and, you know, drawn little animation like effect on top. Because I've seen him paint water. So like that water is a photo, but I've seen him paint water too, you know.
Yeah, but like
I don't care.
The softness of the water in the background and then the sharp cleanness of the lines up front looks so cool. The depth of it.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah, I like it. And then this This fucking frame, man. This is the one that gets me. This should have been 2 pages. You know, like end the book. Like it's right towards the end. So it's like, just make that whole thing 2 pages.
It's gnarly looking.
It's so beautiful, dude. Like,
yeah.
And the waves crash on him and they all think he's dead. And I'm guessing this, like, and then the book ends. So like my guess is this was supposed to be 3 books, but they may not have gotten funding for it. You know, I don't know. Because she's like yelling out to homeboy. She's like, "Oh, sorry." He's gone.
Non.
Like she's yelling no. You know?
Yeah.
His name is Wayne, but yeah. And that's it. Canari Volume 2.
So what do you think? 2032, you'll put out volume number 3? You'll step up and
if I'm alive, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, man, like you know, when you see me doing like studies on apples, you know, like mixed media looking stuff, it's because I'm trying to get my digital work up to like this dude's level. And I don't know if I ever will.
So you're not saying like, no. You're not saying he's not saying no, everybody.
This dude, like the only way I wouldn't dare draw Canari Volume 3. I wouldn't even, I don't even know what the story's about. But like I would give it a go for something like an Avatar or something, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like an Avatar book look like. I would draw the Na'vi and the EMP suits, and you know, maybe I'll sit down one day and just do 4 pages of fan art, like in this style, like sequential page story or something, like 5-6 pages.
I've talked
like
him into
Avatar
it, people.
thing. Yeah, you'd like talk me into it. You know what? Subscribe to the channel, give me views, make it worth. I mean, come on, folks, we gotta get this channel. We haven't gained 1 new subscriber in 5 years. So.
Make Rob famous so I could be his agent, and you know.
Canari, any final thoughts, Brandon?
It is beautiful, and I'll never achieve that form of excellence with my art.
Also, I bet you want to know what his final published work was. That isn't Canari. Remember I said if you stuck around to the end of the video?
Damn it, you got me.
The IMDb, Wikipedia, whatever will tell you Canari was the last thing he did, but it isn't. There's another book, because this was published in 2007. I found this on a lark, digging through Goodreads and, I don't know, weird used book sites, you know?
Okay, the dark web.
Red Song. This was published a year later in 2008. So we will be going through Red Song at some point. There might be 2 books of this, but I only have... No, he died in 2008. There was only 1 book. Like, this is the year he died. So this had to be the last thing he did. I got this. How much do you think I paid for this, Brandon? Hardcover?
$45, $50.
Yeah, $5. I got this for $5.
Son of a bitch.
Library book. Yeah, I know, right? I got a library book from Argentina. So we will go through this at some point. Also, I did find something he did in 2004. If you go to Carlos Meglia's DeviantArt site, which I'll probably put a little video up here right now to show you what it looks like, there's a piece he did that the writer Mike Kennedy, who wrote Superman Infinite City, said Carlos was planning a Batman one-shot, and he put up this test panel, and this panel uses this painted background he did with this cool cell shaded Batman. It's like the coolest 1 frame of Batman you've seen ever. It looked like Meglia. It didn't look like trying to make more Frank Miller, Jim Lee Batman art. You know what I mean? Like it looked like its own thing. He would have completely had his own deal, you know. Looked brilliant. So go check that out. But I have a digital copy of a book he did that has that background. He did that background for a short story in a French anthology book, and we'll have to go over that sometime. We're gonna do more. I got almost all the Carlos Meglia stuff one could own. There's a few things out there I don't have, but I got a lot of it. So we're gonna go through it, Brandon. We're gonna go through Canari. Well, we did go through Canari, volumes 1 and 2, and we'll definitely reconvene at a later point for more Carlos Meglia. Worth your money. Worth your money. Say it with me, Brandon. Go. Worth your money. Worth your money. So go out there,
find Rob
buy this up,
and steal it from him.
Proselytize the name Carlos Meglia, because the fucking man was a brilliant illustrator, one of the best ever, in my opinion. So rest in power, buddy. Okay, Brandon, until next time, say goodbye.
Bye, everybody.
Peace.